See you in court. Jon Moxley just betrayed everything he stood for. AEW fans and directors are losing their minds. The man who built his entire career on being the voice of the voiceless, the anti-establishment rebel who walked away from WWE's corporate machine, has just committed the most hypocritical act in professional wrestling history. Jon Moxley didn't just turn his back on AEW, he absolutely destroyed the very foundation of everything he claimed to believe in, and the fallout is so catastrophic that lawyers are already circling like vultures. You think you've seen betrayals before? Think again. What Moxley just did makes Benedict Arnold look like a saint, and the shockwaves are tearing through all elite wrestling like a nuclear bomb. Fans are calling for boycotts, investors are panicking, and Tony Khan might be facing the biggest crisis of his professional life. But here's what nobody is talking about: the legal implications of this betrayal are so severe that courtrooms could become the next battleground in this wrestling war. For months, we watched Moxley position himself as AEW's moral compass, the guy who supposedly cared about creative freedom and treating wrestlers with respect. He was the poster child for everything AEW represented, an alternative to WWE's corporate stranglehold on sports entertainment. But behind closed doors, while he was preaching about artistic integrity and wrestlers' rights, he was orchestrating the most calculated corporate takeover attempt in modern wrestling history. The evidence is damning, and it's all coming to light now. Sources close to AEW's board of directors reveal that Moxley has been secretly negotiating with outside investors to purchase controlling interest in All Elite Wrestling, completely bypassing Tony Khan and the existing ownership structure. But here's where it gets absolutely disgusting: he's been using insider information, confidential financial data, and proprietary business strategies that he gained through his position as one of AEW's top stars to undermine the very company that made him a main event player again. This isn't just corporate backstabbing, this is potentially criminal behavior. Legal experts are already examining whether Moxley's actions constitute breach of fiduciary duty, insider trading violations, and conspiracy to commit corporate fraud. The man who once walked out of WWE citing creative differences and corporate manipulation has become everything he claimed to hate, and he's done it in the most underhanded way possible. But the betrayal goes deeper than just business dealings. Multiple wrestlers on the AEW roster have come forward anonymously, revealing that Moxley has been actively recruiting talent to jump ship with him to this mysterious new venture. He's been promising them bigger paydays, better creative control, and guaranteed pushes, all while still under contract with AEW and using company resources to fund his recruitment efforts. The most shocking revelation comes from former AEW personnel who claim Moxley has been systematically sabotaging storylines and matches to make AEW look incompetent compared to his future plans. Remember those botched finishes that made no sense? Those sudden character changes that killed momentum? Those mysterious injuries that conveniently removed certain wrestlers from major storylines? Sources suggest these weren't accidents or creative missteps, they were deliberate acts of sabotage orchestrated by someone with enough influence to manipulate booking decisions. Tony Khan's response has been swift and brutal. Legal documents filed this morning show that AEW is pursuing injunctive relief to prevent Moxley from competing anywhere else, demanding return of all confidential information, and seeking damages that could reach into the tens of millions. But Khan isn't stopping there. He's also filed complaints with state athletic commissions, alleging that Moxley's actions constitute fraud against wrestling fans who purchase tickets and pay-per-views based on false premises. The fan reaction has been absolutely explosive. Social media is burning down with hashtags like #MoxleyBetrayer and #SelloutMox trending worldwide. Longtime AEW supporters are destroying merchandise, canceling streaming subscriptions, and calling for complete boycotts of anything associated with Moxley. But the corporate response is even more telling. Major sponsors are reportedly reconsidering their relationships with both AEW and any potential Moxley-affiliated ventures. What makes this betrayal even more infuriating is the timing. AEW just secured a massive new television deal, their pay-per-view numbers are climbing, and they were finally establishing themselves as legitimate competition to WWE's monopolistic practices. Moxley's actions threaten to destroy all of that progress, not just for Tony Khan but for every wrestler who saw AEW as their path to creative freedom and financial security. The legal ramifications extend far beyond simple contract disputes. If prosecutors decide to pursue criminal charges, Moxley could be looking at serious jail time for corporate espionage, fraud, and conspiracy. His actions have potentially cost AEW millions in lost revenue, damaged relationships with television partners, and created uncertainty that could take years to recover from. But here's what really makes your blood boil: Moxley has been playing the victim card throughout this entire ordeal. His representatives are claiming he's just exercising his rights as an independent contractor, that he's fighting against corporate oppression, and that his actions are justified because of alleged mistreatment by AEW management. The audacity is absolutely staggering. This is a man who was given every opportunity to succeed, who was trusted with sensitive business information, and who repaid the trust by attempting to destroy the company from within. Wrestling industry veterans are calling this the most shocking betrayal since the Montreal Screwjob, but even that comparison doesn't capture the full scope of Moxley's deception. At least Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were honest about their animosity. Moxley spent months pretending to be AEW's biggest supporter while secretly working to tear it down. The evidence keeps mounting, and each new revelation is more damaging than the last. Financial records show suspicious payments to shell companies linked to Moxley's business associates. Communication logs reveal late-night phone calls with known wrestling industry power brokers who have been trying to poach AEW talent for months. Even more disturbing, security footage allegedly shows Moxley accessing restricted areas of AEW facilities after hours, potentially stealing trade secrets and confidential documents. This betrayal doesn't just hurt Tony Khan or AEW management, it devastates every fan who believed in what AEW represented. People invested their time, money, and emotional energy in supporting an alternative to WWE's corporate wrestling machine. They believed they were supporting something different, something better. Moxley's actions prove that greed and corporate manipulation exist everywhere, even in companies that claim to be different. The ripple effects are already being felt throughout the wrestling industry. Other promotions are scrambling to distance themselves from any association with Moxley's alleged scheme. Television networks are reportedly reviewing their contracts with wrestling organizations to include stricter anti-corruption clauses. Even WWE, despite their historical animosity toward AEW, has issued statements condemning corporate espionage and supporting fair competition. Legal experts predict this case will set precedents for how wrestling contracts are structured and enforced in the future. The discovery process alone could expose decades of behind-the-scenes wrestling business practices that have never been made public. If this case goes to trial, wrestling fans might finally get answers about how the industry really operates behind closed doors. But beyond the legal implications, this betrayal represents something much more significant: the death of trust in professional wrestling. If Jon Moxley, the supposed voice of integrity and authenticity, can commit such calculated acts of deception, who can fans trust? How can anyone believe that wrestling companies genuinely care about anything other than profits and corporate power? The most heartbreaking aspect of this entire situation is watching young wrestlers who looked up to Moxley as a role model. These athletes chose AEW because they believed in the vision he helped promote. Now they're questioning everything they thought they knew about the industry and wondering if their own careers are built on lies and manipulation. As this story continues to develop, one thing becomes crystal clear: Jon Moxley's legacy is forever tainted by these allegations. Win or lose in court, he'll always be remembered as the man who betrayed everything he claimed to stand for. The legal battles may take years to resolve, but the damage to his reputation and the wrestling industry itself has already been done. The wrestling world will never be the same after this betrayal, and fans deserve answers about how deep this corruption really goes. Stay tuned as we continue following every development in what might become the most important legal case in wrestling history.